In other developing news, KwaZulu-Natal's Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Department is warning residents in parts of the province to brace for heavy downpours, which are likely to cause extensive damage. This warning follows a level 6 alert of disruptive rains that's expected in parts of the northern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. For more on this, let's bring in KZN COGTA spokesperson Siboniso Mngadi, who joins us for a sense of what government is doing to prepare for this. And Siboniso, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks for your time and your patience, by the way. We've been here before in KZN, haven't we? And I wonder what kind of lessons you reckon the government is bringing to your response this time around.
Yeah, well, we have been working on the plan since we've received the warning from the South African Weather Services that the northern part of the province, this includes the city of Mhlathuze, Umtubatuba, Big 5 Hlabisa, Nongoma, Uphongolo, as well as Umhlabiyalingana, that there are high alert of level 6 rains that are expected today. So we've activated our teams on the ground. We've also brought in the emergency services and law enforcement agencies that will be working to ensure that we prioritize the safety of our community. But we are also urging them to work with us in terms of making sure that they relocate to safer places. The public facilities will be open, such as churches and also clinics, to ensure that anyone who is seeking a shelter is able to do so.
Let me apologize to our viewers. Our connection to you isn't the greatest, Siboniso, but hopefully it stabilizes throughout the course of our discussion. How willing are you finding the residents are to relocate? Because in the past, this is what has complicated your ability to respond as government. This resistance, if you like, from many residents to move to these temporary shelters, at least until the weather itself has stabilized.
No, they've been very cooperative. You recall that in January, in Ladysmith, we applied the same tactic when the town got flooded, where we temporarily relocated people to the town hall. But also what we must note and appreciate in rural areas, neighbors, they come in so very handy to help one another in times of distress, where other structures may have collapsed or been flooded. So they're very cooperative, and in some cases, people don't even want to move to, because they rather seek temporary shelter with their neighbors or their relatives. So it's a spirit of Ubuntu that we've seen in the province throughout the summer season, and we're hoping that this time around they will be so appreciative of one another, and also taking care of one another to ensure that everyone is safe during this period.
Yeah, and I'm sure the government will also welcome any kind of assistance, because it really has been one thing after the other for KZN, hasn't it? I mean, we're still speaking, for example, about recovering from the July unrest, which is now almost 2 years ago. And of course, there's been several bouts of heavy downpours that have added to the many woes, infrastructurally speaking. Is the government coping?
Yeah, well, we are coping, because our joint operation cluster, it includes our emergency services, our law enforcement agencies, as well as our social partners, a number of non-governmental organizations that we are working with, such as Mngadi Foundation, South African Red Cross. They are also assisting us with disaster relief. They're also providing temporary structures such as tent and stuff. So we really appreciate, and also other supports that come from local businesses anytime there are such disasters. So we have conducted and we have activated also our joint operating cluster as of yesterday, maybe to devise the plan and how we're going to respond on this disaster. But most importantly, our approach this time around is more of a proactive steps, so where we'll monitor the water level and also move up to speed to ensure that we relocate people before the situation gets so dire. We want to avoid a situation where people end their lives. But also what we want to emphasize is most of the places that are likely to be affected, it involves rural areas. We understand that people have livestock there. So those who have livestock, we have advised them also to seek safer places, like we move them to the upper ground, so that we don't get a situation where livestock is washed away by the heavy downpours.
Yeah, of course. It seems, Siboniso, this is fast becoming a norm in KwaZulu-Natal. I mean, we have this conversation way more often than we used to, perhaps even just as recently as 10 years ago. How is the government factoring this in when you think about spatial planning and where you erect homes for people in order to, of course, minimize any more disasters, at least on human life and the likes, in the wake of these adverse weather conditions?
Yeah, well, it is becoming so common in our province, but it is a combination of many factors because our province is made up of urban and rural areas. Ordinarily, in rural areas, we not necessarily experience such a number of flooding because there are open spaces, there are streams and hills and valleys that will naturally direct water to a certain direction. But what we are emphasizing more, particularly in the rural areas, whenever we meet with Amakosi and Izinduna, who are ordinarily responsible for allocating people plot, we encourage them to take into consideration the issue of climate change and the issue of this flooding that we are experiencing constantly, so that make sure that they don't allocate land plot to floodplain where people are like standing in high risk of being flooded. But also in the urban areas, we work together with the municipalities to ensure that we avoid land invasion and illegal structure, particularly in areas that put their lives in high risk of being flooded. So it is an ongoing process that is not easy, that cannot be resolved overnight, but it is a long process because some people have already built houses there. So our approach now is to engage them and advise them to relocate and go to a more suitable place where there will not be a danger of being flooded.
Absolutely. You don't need me to tell you that you've got your work cut out for you. So thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. Siboniso Mngadi is the spokesperson for the KwaZulu Natal Cooperative Governance Department.